Last Friday, we went live for 24 hours in order to raise money for Isla Caton and the Bradley Lowry Foundation, and we did just that. We raised an absurd amount of money, more so than I think any of us could have ever imagined for. Throughout the 24-hour live stream, Gio held some amazing interviews with some amazing guests, big figures in the West Ham scene, and none more prevalent than Graeme Howlett, the owner, the founder of KUMB, Knees Up Mother Brown, one of the biggest West Ham sites in the UK, if not one of the biggest in European football. It's a great watch, it's a fantastic interview. Don't forget, if you do like it, please don't forget to subscribe, drop a like on the video, and be sure to check out some of the other videos coming this week of more interviews that Gio had with some of the guests. Enjoy.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good now. I'm finally able to talk to you. How are you? How are you feeling? Bearing up well?
Tired.
I can imagine, mate. It's been a long. You've done a fantastic job, but not long to go now, right? See, it's a bit like the marathon. You've got the last couple of miles, and your legs have just seized completely, I guess.
I think my legs are seasoned, to be honest with you. But anyway, I want to talk about you and Knees Up Mother Brown a little bit because I was saying to the other guys, when people get you on, everybody asks your opinion and it's on this, that, and the other. But I sort of want to know. I know a little bit about the background of yourself and Knees Up Mother Brown. But to be honest, I don't know everything. So when did Knees Up Mother Brown form?
We started in 1997. So yeah, 22 years ago now.
What made you come up with that idea?
I was to try and condense a long story. I was in my sort of mid-20s at the time. I'd been bumming around doing various pretty mundane jobs, and I decided that it was about time I got my arse in gear and got myself a trade. I was one of those kids who was very, very fortunate to grow up in the sort of early to mid 80s when the home computer revolution was taking effect. And I was quite a keen programmer, like pretty much everyone of my generation, from that time. And it was something I'd always sort of kept a finger in. And, we got to the mid 90s and there was this massive revolution which was occurring. The World Wide Web, as it was known at the time. And I could sort of see that, or at least envisage that this was the way technology was going to be moving, especially in terms of media and that kind of thing. So I needed a project to kind of put my newly learnt skills into, down as a test. And it was either going to be football or music at the time. So, music would have been good because obviously it was kind of the Britpop era at the time, 96, 97. So there was plenty to write about. But in the end, I decided to stick to my main love, which was football and obviously West Ham United. So I created a small online fanzine, which we called Knees Up Mother Brown, purely as a project just to teach me those skills so I could get back into sort of full-time employment. And that little project that was supposed to run for a matter of weeks is still going 22 years later, and it's now something I do full time. So it's kind of funny how things fate treats us very strangely at times.
How was this your job from day one, or how long was it until you sort of were able to do it full time?
So we started the site in 97. I think if I recall correctly, we had 25, 26 visitors the first week, which I was just absolutely made up by. That sort of 20 plus people have found out their way to this site. The idea very much at the beginning was to do an online version of OLUS. We were looking at getting article writers in, providing match reports, that sort of thing. So it's actually not a lot different to the way it runs now, but that was initially the idea. It sort of got up and running, and it's kind of just really mushroomed a bit from there. Sorry, I've totally forgotten your question, which you asked me a moment ago.
That's all right. I was just wondering how long, until it took to generate an income, if you like, so you could call it a full-time job.
Yeah, sorry. So it was about the first. I ran it until 2010 in conjunction. I managed to, upon sort of becoming a developer, teaching myself PHP, that sort of thing, web design, CSS, that kind of stuff. I managed to get a job in the city, and I was working for a law firm running their intranet for about 10 years. And then in 2008, they merged. They were taken over by an American firm to make the company one of the biggest law firms in the world. Consequently, there was 2 people for every job. And because the American firm were the larger firm, most of the jobs were going to their people. And so, consequently, they offered everybody a redundancy, which I took, and I took a massive drop in income to run the site. But it's probably the best thing I've ever done. It's good to have money. It's good to be financially sound. But if you're not happy, doing something you enjoy or doing something you love, I know there's very few people that are fortunate enough to do that. But if you get the opportunity, you've got to take it, regardless of the financial cost, I think, or at least I would. And we've never looked back. And so since 2008, I've been running the site as a full-time concern. So yeah, about 11 years now. So but pretty much half and half. Half the time it was running my spare time while I was working elsewhere and updating my lunch breaks and sort of mini breaks elsewhere. But now it's a full-time concern. I run the site from home, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 2 big successes. I mean, the first one's your forum. It sort of still is one of the largest independent football forums in Europe, would you say?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it's the forum we're on is actually our second version of it. We did have I can't remember what they call them, but like the flat thread forum, kind of like the way that Facebook runs. So you have concurrent threads. You don't have a page of threads the way we do it and the way you guys do it at Hammers Chat, where you have that specific forum software created for that task. But yeah, I mean, this current version, we use PHPBB currently. We've been running that since 2002 now, and it's been fantastic. We've got, as I say, we've got a large membership. We've got an even larger number of people that just come and visit the site who've never seen fit to become a member or even post. Most people just like reading the forums, and I'm the same actually when I go to various forums for other things. I don't really have any intention of posting. I'm just there to see what's being said and what the latest news is. So well, I don't know how big it is. I'm not really concerned about that. It's just something that I'm just glad I can still do after 22 years. And especially given the plethora of new sites and social. I mean, when we started, there was no Facebook. There was no such thing as social media. It didn't exist. So we've sort of had to YouTube again. There was no YouTube. This is how long the site's been running, and so we've had to sort of deal with the advent of these new technologies and systems and platforms. So that's as I say, I'm just really grateful that people still come and visit us after all this time and with all the competition, especially with a lot of the new media that's being done. Obviously, spoke to Nikki and Ryan earlier, who have done a fabulous job with West Ham Fan TV. And there's obviously loads of Facebook and groups and obviously influential folks on Twitter who have followed. So yeah, really, I'm just grateful that I'm still able to do it after all this time, and that people still come and visit us.
Does it worry you that there's other sort of recently, if you like, in the last year, there's been sort of non-West Ham sites but big sites sort of stopping running? I think there was a Hull City one. Was it last month maybe? And yeah. Does it worry you that social media is sort of taking over, or are you still quite content that neither other brand's going to generate a full-time job for you for the foreseeable future, at least?
It's a good question. It's obviously, we've lost a certain degree of our followership to social media. But the thing is, you've got to embrace these technologies and bring them on board. And we've been on Twitter and Facebook for a few years now. I don't really do an awful lot there, but you've got to have a presence. You've got to look to the future. It's no good, it's no good just sitting there and sort of trying to ignore everything else and imagine it's not happening. You either embrace these technologies and go with the times, or you lose out. It's very interesting to note recently there's been a real resurgence in the use of forums, and especially where football is concerned, because the bottom line is, if you want to hold a conversation or a debate, you can't beat the forum setup. Now, Facebook, Twitter, other social media platforms are great if you want that immediacy. You know, you don't have to log in, you don't have to create an account, etc. You can just hit a like button and you can post it in a group, which is fabulous. But you know, when it comes to sort of looking back for something that someone might have said a few months ago, or if you were looking for a particular player that perhaps, you know, you wanted more information on, it's pretty darned impossible to find on the main social media groups, which is where, again, forums, as you well know, you know, you've got the searchable options, so that gives you another advantage there. But no, they really are. There's a real resurgence. We noticed this year the football blogging awards brought back the best forum award this year for the first time in 4 years. So that's a reasonable indicator that you know, that kind of platform is being used again, and it's becoming popular. So that's good. But I mean, the thing is with Knees Up Mud Brown, the forum is the busiest area of the site, but that was never, you know, when we started, there was no forum. There was no forum for the first 2 years. It was just a news site. That was my idea, is that I wanted it to be an independent voice of West Ham, you know. So we were complementing what the club were doing with their own website. The issue that the club have, obviously, is that they can't publish anything that is derogatory towards the club, or, you know, sort of condemns the club for something they've done, and they can't produce information from other clubs. So, for example, you know, one of the most common and enjoyed features, I think, on KUMB is the opposition view, which we publish after every match, or as many matches as we can. Sometimes if we've lost, say, for example, to Chelsea or Arsenal, I don't want to put a page up with, you know, people taking the mickey out of West Ham fans. The other way around, of course, we'll be there all day. But, you know, things like that. So the forum has obviously developed, and it is now the main focus of the site. But that certainly wasn't the case when we began. As I say, it was very much about the news and getting people to contribute and try and offer an independent voice that, you know, you're not going to get from the club for the reasons that I outlined a moment ago.
Was it about a year ago, roughly, or maybe even longer than that? You'll correct me. You had media accreditation withdrawn from West Ham United yourself personally.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's I don't know really how much I should go into, because it's probably not fair on people at the club that were just doing their job, and you know. But yeah, it was. I mean, we've both Gordon Thrower and myself have had access to press conferences for the last 15 years, from sort of 2004, 2005. And we enjoyed that access for all those years. And then when we moved to Stratford the first year, I had a season ticket with my son. And although some journalists do take their kids into the press conferences, I've always felt it's a little bit unprofessional. So whilst I might have done it once or twice at the Bowling when when he'd come for the odd game, it would have been a question of going in there every week with him. So I decided that I wasn't going to go in there for the first season. I'd leave it to Gordon. So that was fine. That was okay. Anyway, we came to the second season, and I hadn't renewed my season ticket. I was one of those sort of conscientious objectors, I guess. So our 2 season tickets went back. And anyway, I spoke to people at the club, and they made it quite clear that as a result of what they deemed to be negative coverage of the club, my media access was being revoked with immediate effect, which was obviously particularly disappointing, because we'd been there for years. We'd never, as far as we're aware, caused any problems. We'd always, put the information up as it was said, and it just appeared to be a little bit spiteful from the club that, you know, because you're not publishing the information we want, or in the manner that we'd like to see. We're going to take that away from you. And you know, it's probably not such a problem for some people. Obviously, as you yourself and all your listeners are aware, it's my full-time occupation. I have to pay the rent based on what the site earns. So that was particularly difficult. We also used to have a contractor. West Ham used to be our biggest advertiser, and they took that away again as a result of us refusing to alter our editorial approach. The thing is, I've always said to the club, we are a West Ham United site, but our our priority is the supporters. We are fans ourselves. Fans. The fans keep the site going. They write for the site, and so they are our priority. And obviously, whilst we are West Ham fans, it's West Ham fans. The club will have to play second fiddle to that. And so, as a result, we've put out a lot of stuff that the club haven't liked over the years. They've made that quite clear. I've been asked numerous times to remove or filter content by certain people at the club, which I've always refused to do. I've always, and the result of that was that they took the contract away and also revoked my media access, which is the way it goes. I get that. That's I'm not going to sit here and moan about it. If you're going to have principles and you're going to stand by them, then sometimes you've got to look. You've got to face that. So that's just the way it is at the moment. So yeah, but I mean, to be fair to the club, they've not banned KUMB full stop. Gordon Thrower, who is my sort of assistant editor, and someone who's worked on the site for nearly 20 years, has access still. So it's not as if they've just sort of said, "Well, sod you, we're throwing you out completely." But it's just a bit strange, really, because as a result, there's this kind of atmosphere between the two, and at a time when you'd think, especially given the shenanigans of last year, that the club might want to bring more fans in and work together. There's this kind of opposition to certain elements of the fan base, and it's not helping the club, and it won't help the club, and it's always going to be a problem until it's resolved. So it's a little bit difficult, which is a shame, because over the years the club have had some wonderful press officers that have been incredibly helpful to Knees Up Mother Brown. People like Greg Demetriou, Paul Stringer. Paul Aldridge was actually very helpful, but I'm going back even further now. So it's just a shame. But we hope that one day the club will accept that you can't control independent output. Well, not all of it anyway.
Why you gave up your season ticket? Was it the season before last? Why did you give up your season ticket?
I didn't enjoy the stadium. I mean, at Stratford, we went there for the first year. I always said I'd give it a go, but it was the fact that when we got there, it just wasn't how it was sold to us, Gio. Which is obviously something that I know you've had a major issue with as well from previous conversations we've had. The stuff about David Gold, we've all seen that video where David Gold promised that we wouldn't be moving to Stratford unless the seats were as close to the pitch as they were at the bowling ground. We've all seen the video of Karen Brady telling us that we're going to have this, a state-of-the-art retractable seating. Again, I appreciate that wasn't the club's fault, that the company folded, but if you're going to make promises to fans, and you don't deliver, then you can't still expect the fans to be happy about it. That's the bottom line. And all this stuff about the 85% that wanted to go. The fact of the matter is 50% of that 85% said they wanted to go to Stratford because it meant that the club would have an enhanced revenue or enhanced revenue streams and be able to go out and buy better players. Now, as you will know from speaking to Kieran last night, the move has been worth no more than £2 million a year to West Ham, which is only £500,000 or £600,000 more than Karen Brady took out of the club last year through a salary and a bonus. So it's this is the issue. This is the problem. It's the lies. It's the falsehoods. It's the mistruths. It's the economy with the truth. Or I can't recall how Sean described it earlier when he was trying to get out of David Sullivan being called a liar. But obviously that was over something completely different. But it's the fact that they've I don't want to swear, but they've just not been honest with the fan base, and this is why you've got the ISA. This is why you had Bubbles planting the flag in the centre circle, and this is why Hammers United are going to be a real pain in the arse for the club in the course of the next year or two. And they can they can talk about the OSB until the cows come home, but the fans want a truly independent voice, and it's going to be a problem. Again, you know, looking at what Kieran said last night about how some sponsors might have been put off looking at naming rights because of the bad atmosphere between the club and the fan base. I mean, the club must be aware of this, you know, but it just seems odd that they don't appear to be too concerned about doing anything about it, or at least that's the way it appears to me and to many other people. Obviously, not everybody would agree, but that is going to be a problem for some considerable time until the club, the board, sit down and say to these people, right, we want to hear what you've got to say. You've got something to say. Let's hear you.
Were you surprised at how, you know, the Kieran Maguire one, when he said it was about £2 million per season, it's been worth for West Ham so far? Did it surprise you how little it was? I mean, I knew it wasn't like a massive difference, but I didn't think it was that low.
Well, no, it didn't surprise me because I was aware that was roughly what it was worth anyway. I'd spoken to Kieran before about some content we were doing at the time with regards to the accounts. So you know, from that perspective, it wasn't a surprise. But the first time you hear it, you're like, you know, where's the motivation for moving there? If the motivation isn't increased ability to spend, what's the motivation? And that's again, that is a question that has been asked and not been answered for the last 3 years. You know, and then you've got this stuff about the ground being sold and being flipped for 20 million 24 hours later, and again that starts, you know, accusations coming out and people asking questions. So perhaps a little bit of a lack of transparency there, perhaps.
You've considered getting your season ticket back for next season, haven't you?
I have. I've got no chance though.
Yeah, not with 40,000 on the waiting list. Are you on the waiting list?
No, I'm not on the waiting list, but I mean, I've got an advantage over everybody or most people in that I'm a bond holder. So I am very fortunate in that if I ever want tickets, I can just ring up and get them. You know, jump to the front of the queue. I do appreciate that. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. So I'm not in the same boat as the vast majority of those 15,000 fans who have handed their season ticket back in since we moved to Stratford, who are now, you know, having now dropped off the list, are at the bottom. And this is another thing, actually. I mean, you know, I didn't want to come on here and just moan about the club, but I think it's important to say this. Thousands and thousands of people who have been attending West Ham games for many, many years and whose families attended West Ham games before that have now fallen out of the system. And it strikes me that there's no attempt to get them back. It strikes me that as long as West Ham United are putting bums on seats, they don't care where they're coming from. And that's fine when, you know, when you're able to fill a 66,000 stadium week in, week out, assuming we'll be able to this year. But the bubble will burst one day. And all those people, all the fair weather fans or those that have just joined and haven't really sort of got into it will go. And the club will be in a desperate situation then. I'm sure it will be long after the current administration have departed and gone on to other things. But that will happen one day and the club will suffer. And I think it's imperative that some sort of operation or project is put in position to try and lure back some of those disenchanted supporters, whether or not it will. As I say, I think Karen Brady's mantra is as long as they're bums on seats, they're happy. But you know, it's just a shame that there's so many people that have been going there for many, many years. You know, like for example, my family, I could go back to the 1940s that I know of. So what's that? That's like nearly 80 years of support, season ticket holders, and it's just gone now. You know, those people in that position have got no chance of getting season tickets again. And the problem is the club telling everyone that there's nearly 40,000 people on the waiting list. People are going to be saying, well, what's the point of joining it? There's what did they say? I think the renewal rate was 94%, wasn't it, last night? So you're looking at about 4,000 fans that have returned or have not renewed this year. Now, you know, if you've got 40,000 fans on a waiting list, you know, you don't have to be Albert Einstein to work out that it's going to take you 10 years to clear that list. That's before another person puts their name down. You know, if that's the churn rate for the next 10 years. So there's no benefit or no incentive for any supporter to enter that list now. So if the club are kind of massaging the numbers a little bit, which has been suggested by various agencies over the months and years, then in essence they're shooting themselves in the foot, because I suspect it will be, you know, turning people away rather than you know, urging them to sort of come back. But yeah, so again, I've gone off on a total tangent, haven't I?
Oh, it's good. It's good. And the live chat's enjoying it anyway. And they're all agree with you as well. I'm going to change topic drastically a little bit here. Your podcast on News at Mother, very successful.
Yes.
Then suddenly just stopped. I'm aware you had host sort of moving on, if you like, but it just stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, so so what happened was, I mean, the podcast was never my bag. It was brought to us. Chris Skull came to us 2012, whenever it was, around that time anyway, and said, look, there's myself and a friend, and we want to start a West Ham related podcast. We thought we'd come to you as you're the biggest site there is, and just see if you're interested. And I was, you know, it's funnily enough, we did a pilot podcast. And I'm going back to 2004, 2005. We sat in a restaurant and sort of had a live chat, and you know, it would have been terrible, quite frankly. So that didn't go anywhere. So the idea never really sort of went from there. But as I say, Chris approached us and said we'd like to do the podcast. And obviously, you know, I'm always happy to give a platform to any West Ham fan that wants to sort of do that. And again, from a selfish perspective, it was good for the site, so yeah, there's absolutely no problem with doing that. And Chris was joined by his good friend James Longman, and they did 5 seasons of just one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to. You know, it was absolutely fantastic. I'm sure most people agree. I don't think I'm, you know, talking out of turn. It was superb. And you know, we were the first sort of West Ham site to get those that sort of era, the 90s era of players, and then the sort of early 2000s on board. So what the guys were doing was absolutely fantastic. And then Chris decided he'd had enough after 4 or 5 years, which is absolutely fair enough. You know, the thing to remember is that the guys weren't getting paid for this. You know, this was all something they'd do in Soho. We'd go into a studio on a Monday night and borrow a studio off somebody, which is a friend of Chris, who was in the industry. So that was good. So it was all a bit like that. You know, it was what we could beg, borrow, and steal to put it on. But they did an absolutely fantastic 5-series run, and then at the end of it, Chris just said, "You know what? I've had enough. I'm just a bit burnt out," which is absolutely fair enough. You know, we've done the 5 series of the podcast. We've done the KUMB live shows at the East Ham Working Men's Club with Frank McAvenny, Mad Dog, and people like that, Martin Allen. So, you know, we've done a good stint, and then they sort of went off on the separate ways. James, as you'll be aware, is now producing James Corden's show in the States, and recently won an Oscar or one of those industry awards for his work. And Chris is doing an awful lot of work with West Ham now, and doing some really fantastic stuff over there. And I'm still sitting here on my arse watching everyone do well for themselves. But it's been fantastic. But the thing with the podcast, I mean, people keep saying to me, "Why don't you bring it back? Why don't you bring it back?" But my view has always been, look, if it's not as good as it was before, there's no point in doing it. Okay, so and we've looked at getting a team together. I mean, there's myself and a couple of other guys who I won't name, but one of them is actually on this run, your live feed today. But you know, we've had a team, but it's just been a question of getting it together. We just haven't had the time. So, you know, as I say, and unless it was going to be as good as it was before, I wouldn't do it. And so that's pretty much why it hasn't come back at the moment. I've been hoping that James might send us an invite to Hollywood so we can shoot out there for a couple of weeks and do a bit of filming or recording. But so far that's not materialised. But you never know. But you know, it's a case of never say never. Maybe it might come back one day, but not right now. So it's really a watch this space. And to be fair, there's some good podcasts out there. Hammer Time. I've been going for years and years. I know Sean does his podcast, and the boys at the West Ham Way do a podcast as well. So it's not like there's no content out there for West Ham fans, you know. But it's just I just wouldn't want to go back and do something that everyone else is doing now. You know, it's just it'd have to be something unique and something different and something fresh. So it's obviously difficult. I mean, we've looked at sort of. You know, I tried to get you on board a while ago, but I think Gonzo had already got you on board with Hammer's Chat.
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting one, actually, because I remember speaking to Gonzo about it, and Gonzo said to me, at the time, if you want views, go to Knees Up Mother Brown and get your views like that. And it was a real dilemma for me at the time, because I'd only just started with Hammer's Chat. I think we were a handful of videos. It was nothing. I think we had less than 100 subscribers and that. So I was trying to decide, do I want to go to Knees Up Mother Brown and get the views like that? Then I thought, you know, I've got to know Gonzo, and he's sort of become a friend a little bit. And I got to know Charlie as well. And I thought, well, I'm having fun. And so I just stuck with it and decided to wing it a little bit. And here we are today.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, you've done a brilliant job there, and you made the right choice. And it's doing really well, which is good to see. But you know, it's as I say, I think, you know, it's not an area that we'd like to challenge at the moment until I've got something. I mean, I have got certain ideas that I'd like to do, certain things I'd like to produce, but it's going to take time and a bit of work. And I'm obviously keen. I don't want to step on other people's toes as well. You know, if people like you and West Ham TV are doing certain things. You know, that's your bag, and I wouldn't want to sort of come in and, you know, do the same thing. But you know, we'll see. There's technology is great, isn't it? You know, we with the stuff we've got open to us, you know, you can do pretty much anything. So you know, we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Graeme, we're going to have to love you and leave you, because we've got the H list coming on next. Jim's coming on next. And just before you go, we've got one question from Ash. You've been watching the stream, so you'll know what's coming. Cottage pie or shepherd's pie?
Yeah, I've thought about this question. I'm like, listen, we're a West Ham fans. If you're going to put a pie on your plate, it's going to be with mash and liquor, right? So the answer for me has got to be neither. It'd be a big pie mash.
That's a curveball answer. That brilliant. Anyway, thank you very much, Graeme. Keep up the good
work. You're welcome. Keep up the good work, and you're doing a fantastic thing there, mate. So good luck to all of you.
You can now purchase a season ticket for the Hammer's Chat boats for the 2019-20 season. Prices start from £60 and includes entry to all boats events that we may have, including cup games and friendlies at the London Stadium next season. Please get in touch via email at hammerschat@gmail.com or via Twitter, hammers_chat. All details are in the description below. Get in touch and we'll see you next season.